If you pull a dollar bill out of your wallet right now, or if you look at almost any official government document, you're going to see the Great Seal of the United States.
Right, the eagle and the shield.
Exactly. And right there, clutched in the beak of the eagle, is that famous Latin banner, E pluribus unum.
Out of many, one.
Yeah, out of many, one. And it's a it's a really elegant idea. You take all these completely disparate voices, all these conflicting interests across this massive continent, and you forge a single unified national direction.
It really is the founding structural ideal of the entire federal system. The idea that we can actually synthesize the many into the one.
Right. But then you actually look at the daily output of the legislature, and suddenly that elegant idea gets incredibly complicated.
To say the least.
Yeah. So welcome to Congress in Context. This is our deep dive into the real-world mechanics of how lawmakers are actually navigating the many.
And we have a massive stack of primary sources today.
We really do. We are looking at the master bill summaries from the 119th Congress, and we're specifically leaning on the Senate's Daily Digest for August 4, 2026.
And, our mission for this deep dive is to act as your translators. We aren't just going to sit here and read off a list of bill numbers.
No, nobody wants that.
Right. We're taking the raw procedural maneuvers, the committee markups, and the dense legislative text from these sources and decoding them into understandable policy impacts.
Because we want you to see how the machinery operates on a day-to-day basis, and more importantly, why it actually matters.
Exactly.
Oh, and just a quick housekeeping note before we jump in. This is a completely independent civic education project, so if you find this deep dive helpful, you can check out the Buy Me a Coffee link in your app's show notes to support the production infrastructure.
And you can also access a full bill summary breakdown there, too.
Right. Okay, so let's unpack this. The seal says out of many, one. But looking at these highly specific bills, it seems like Congress spends almost all of its time bogged down in the many.
That's a fair assessment.
I mean, just looking at the Daily Digest for August 4th, there were 19 separate bills introduced in a single day. How does that sheer volume actually function on a mechanical level? It seems like total chaos.
It definitely looks like chaos from the outside, but it actually functions through highly specialized parallel processing.
Parallel processing.
Yeah, so the Senate doesn't just work on one thing at a time. It operates across multiple tracks that are all running simultaneously.
Right.
You have floor votes happening in one room, committee hearings down the hall, and unanimous consent agreements being hammered out in back offices all at once.
So it's less like a single assembly line and more like a massive factory floor with, 50 different conveyor belts.
Exactly. Like, for example, while the main floor is tied up debating international trade extensions, committees are simultaneously rewriting education data laws and examining the consumer impacts of artificial intelligence. It's a massive exercise in multitasking.
Okay, let's look at what actually made it across the finish line on the floor. There were some significant advancements in health research that moved with near unanimous consensus, right?
They did.
I'm looking at Senate Bill 4472, the ALS Act, and Senate Bill 494, the National Plan for Epilepsy Act.
Yes, those passed very smoothly. S 4472 reauthorizes the Accelerating Access to Critical Therapies for ALS Act.
And mechanically, what does that actually mean?
It means it extends a vital grant program for ALS research through fiscal year 2031. It also adds a statutory requirement for clinical trial status reviews to assess the progress of investigational drugs.
Wait, let me pause you there. Why does extending it out to 2031 matter so much? Why not just fund it year by year?
Well, it's because of the nature of the research itself. Clinical trials for neurodegenerative diseases take years to yield usable data.
Oh, sure.
If you only fund a program year to year, researchers can't make long-term commitments to patient cohorts or lab infrastructure.
Because the money might just dry up next January.
Right. By putting a 5-year horizon into statute, Congress provides the structural stability required for serious, long-term scientific inquiry.
That makes total sense.
And similarly, the Epilepsy Act, S 494, formally establishes a coordinated national research plan, basically ensuring different federal health agencies aren't accidentally duplicating their efforts.
Got it. We also saw the Senate agree to a resolution recognizing the 80th anniversary of the Fulbright program, Senate Resolution 830, which is a nice moment of diplomatic consensus.
Yeah, definitely a smoother vote.
But while those pass smoothly, other floor action requires a lot more grinding of the gears. Which brings us to the trade discussions.
The AGOA bill.
Right. The Senate was engaged in something called post-cloture consideration of the motion to proceed on House Resolution 6500, the AGOA Extension Act. I need a translation there. They had to vote just to end the debate on whether to begin debating.
It sounds totally circular, but yes. It's a procedural mechanism to overcome a filibuster on the motion to proceed. You see, a filibuster doesn't just happen at the final vote. Any senator can object to merely opening a bill for discussion.
Wow, okay.
To break that objection, the Senate has to invoke cloture, which usually requires 60 votes.
And then there's a waiting period after that, right? That's the post-cloture part.
Right. Even after you get the 60 votes to break the filibuster, Senate rules allow for up to 30 hours of additional debate.
That's essentially running out the clock.
Basically, yeah. They have to wait that out before they can formally begin considering the actual legislation.
So that is a massive amount of friction just to open the door. What is inside this AGOA bill that warrants all this procedural runway?
Well, AGOA stands for the African Growth and Opportunity Act. It's really a cornerstone of U.S.-Africa economic policy. Section 2 of this bill extends preferential duty-free treatment for certain African countries by pushing the expiration deadline from September 2025 out to December 31st, 2028.
Okay.
It also includes a retroactive application clause.
Which means what exactly?
This means if there's a gap period before this bill is signed, any customs entries made during that gap can be liquidated later without interest penalties.
Oh, I see. Basically making sure importers don't get financially punished just because Congress is taking its time.
Precisely. And Section 3 extends customs user fees all the way to December 2031 to help offset the costs of the program.
Okay, so the main floor is handling these broad trade and health research bills. Meanwhile, behind the scenes in the committee rooms, the literal structure of the government is being shaped.
The factory floor is busy.
Yeah. We saw the Judiciary Committee favorably report the nomination of Todd Blanche to be Attorney General, moving his confirmation to the full Senate.
And committees are also where Congress gathers its data for future legislation. Like, the Budget Committee held a hearing explicitly titled Reality of Medicaid, taking a hard look at the financial mechanics and sustainability of the program.
And over in the Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Counterterrorism, they held a highly specific hearing on the consumer costs of AI surveillance pricing, bringing in economic and labor groups to testify.
We also saw several bills formally reported out of committee on the 4th, meaning they have been drafted, amended, and are now waiting for full floor consideration.
Like Senate Bill 2511, the College Transparency Act?
Right, which mandates a post-secondary student data system. You also have S3097, creating new privacy standards for health information, and S4965, establishing a dedicated administrative account for the Railroad Retirement Board to fund their IT modernization.
But the one that really stood out to me was Senate Bill 5046.
Yeah, that is a fascinating piece of structural legislation. S5246 specifically prohibits the transfer of certain offices, like the Office of Special Education and the Office of Indian Education, out of the Department of Education to any other federal agency.
Why would Congress care where a specific office sits on a bureaucratic flowchart?
Because org charts are policy. This legally restrains the Secretary of Education from entering into transfer agreements. By writing this into statute, Congress is effectively attempting to lock the department's current organizational structure in place.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, it prevents any future administration from quietly dismantling the Department of Education by scattering its crucial offices to other departments, like Interior or Health and Human Services. It's Congress asserting control over the executive branch's internal architecture.
It's all about defining boundaries.
Yeah.
And when we look at the political dynamics of this specific legislative day, you can really see where those boundaries create consensus and where they create immense friction.
Definitely.
For instance, there is a clear bipartisan mechanism functioning right now around Native American land management.
Yes, the mechanism of transferring land into trust status is being utilized repeatedly and with broad agreement to resolve jurisdictional boundaries.
Give me an example.
Well, Senate Bill 1514 proposes transferring 72 acres of Forest Service land in Washington state into trust for the Quinault Indian Nation.
What does holding land in trust actually accomplish on a practical level?
When the federal government holds land in trust for a recognized tribe, it essentially removes that land from state and local jurisdiction.
Okay.
It integrates the land into the reservation. It explicitly prohibits commercial gaming on this specific parcel, but it exempts the land from state property taxes and reinforces the tribe's sovereign authority over the area.
And we saw the exact same mechanism used in the Crow Revenue Act, S239. That bill structurally requires the transfer of mineral rights from a private trust to the Crow tribe in Montana, placing those rights in federal trust.
Right.
And again, in the Albuquerque Indian School Act, S3219, transferring administrative jurisdiction of federal land to be held in trust for the collective educational and economic benefit of 19 different New Mexico pueblos.
These bills demonstrate Congress efficiently using property transfer mechanisms to reinforce tribal sovereignty. It's a relatively quiet area of bipartisan agreement.
But the legislative machinery isn't always used for consensus. We're also seeing Congress use its tools to directly block rules generated by the executive branch. This seems to be where the real partisan friction lives.
Yes, absolutely. Let's look at S4427. This bill prohibits the Secretary of Labor from finalizing or enforcing a proposed OSHA standard regarding heat injury and illness prevention in the workplace.
So they're blocking the rule entirely.
Right. The statutory language dictates that a one-size-fits-all approach to heat regulation cannot be enforced by the agency. Congress is stepping in to say the executive branch has overstepped its regulatory mandate.
We see a similar pushback in foreign policy with S4436. This bill seeks to formally nullify specific foreign assistance rules.
Yes, it strips the force and effect of rules regarding gender and discriminatory equality ideology in foreign assistance, legally preventing any federal department from implementing them.
Both are clear examples of Congress trying to build a fence around what federal agencies are allowed to do. And we have to look at the STP Act, S4426, which establishes prohibitions regarding gender transition procedures for minors.
Right.
And what caught my eye here is the mechanism it uses to establish federal jurisdiction, which is interstate commerce. The bill makes it illegal to travel in interstate commerce, use an instrumentality of interstate commerce, or transmit communications to perform or aid in performing these procedures on individuals under 18.
That's correct.
It does specify exceptions, like services for individuals diagnosed with disorders of sex development or treatments for injuries caused by previous procedures. But I have to ask, how does buying and selling goods across state lines connect to regulating medical procedures?
Well, it's the ultimate jurisdictional hook in federal law. Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to regulate commerce among the several states. And over the past century, the courts have interpreted that power very broadly. By tying the prohibition to the use of any instrumentality of interstate commerce, which could be as simple as using the internet or making a phone call across state lines, Congress is utilizing its Article 1 powers to establish nationwide regulations on specific medical procedures.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a prime example of Congress leveraging structural boundaries to enact national policy.
Here is where it gets really interesting for you, the listener, regarding how this entire machine operates. We just talked about the AGOA trade extension taking multiple days and requiring a 60-vote cloture threshold just to start the debate.
Right, the 30-hour waiting period.
Yeah, so if passing a single bill requires that much procedural runway, how on earth did the Senate authorize the consideration of 61 different executive nominations at the exact same time?
Oh, that is a process known as the en bloc mechanism. It is a vital piece of congressional plumbing. Without it, the Senate would entirely grind to a halt.
How does it work?
Well, Senate Resolution 817 was introduced to authorize the simultaneous en bloc consideration of 61 nominations. We're talking about ambassadors to places like Norway and Tanzania,
Wow.
UN representatives, and board members for the National Labor Relations Board.
Wait, so they aren't looking at these 61 people individually at all? Isn't that just a massive rubber stamp?
Well, it functions a bit like a software update.
What do you mean?
Think about when your phone downloads an update with 61 different bug fixes bundled into a single package. You don't approve them one by one. You just click Install once.
Oh, okay.
By agreeing to consider them en bloc, the Senate bundles these non-controversial nominees into a single package, completely bypassing the requirement for 61 separate debates and 61 separate roll call votes.
That makes a lot of sense. Another critical tool we saw utilized is the Congressional Review Act, or CRA. Senator Whitehouse introduced a joint resolution, SJ Res 187, to disapprove an EPA rule change.
Right, regarding the reporting deadlines.
Yeah, the EPA had proposed changing the start date for submitting reporting and record keeping regarding PFAS chemicals, the so-called forever chemicals, under the Toxic Substances Control Act.
The CRA is a powerful tool. It allows Congress to pass a joint resolution stating a federal agency's rule shall have no force or effect. In this case, the resolution was successfully utilized to disapprove the EPA's deadline change.
So it's essentially an undo button for bureaucracy.
That's a great way to put it.
By passing it, the original earlier statutory deadline for PFAS reporting legally remains in place. Congress is exercising a direct veto over the agency.
Exactly. Congress delegated the power to the EPA to make rules in the first place, but the CRA allows Congress to just snatch that power back if they disagree with how it's being used.
So what does this all mean for specific groups of Americans? Let's look at how these mechanical changes ripple out into real-world policies, starting with education. There seems to be a huge focus on data and verification in this batch of bills.
Yes, very much so. For instance, S 4428 amends the Higher Education Act to mandate the use of an identity fraud detection system for FAFSA applications.
Basically hardwiring a digital security checkpoint into the student loan process.
Exactly. If the system flags a reasonable suspicion of identity fraud, the institution is legally prohibited from dispersing federal financial aid until the applicant's identity is verified through an in-person or live synchronous audiovisual process.
So it forces a human interaction step to combat automated fraud.
Right.
And we're also seeing changes to how universities report their success rates.
Hmm.
There is a bill, S 4431, requiring institutions to disclose graduation rates not just at the normal time of completion, but at 150%, 200%, and 300% of the normal completion time.
And they have to disaggregate that data by first-time, non-first-time, full-time, and part-time students.
Why is that level of detail necessary?
What's crucial here is that Congress is attempting to force transparency onto higher education by acknowledging reality. Measuring graduation rates based solely on four-year timelines really ignores non-traditional students.
Like people working full-time or single parents returning to school.
Exactly. By expanding the reporting metrics, consumers can actually see how well an institution supports students who are running a longer marathon.
We also saw highly specific structural protections advanced for two very different groups, veterans and animals.
Yes.
S 4445 structurally amends the U.S. Code to enhance criminal penalties for fraud when the targeted victim is a veteran of any age. And then you have S 4437, the Puppy Protection Act, which implements rigid spatial and breeding regulations for commercial dog dealers.
The Puppy Protection Act is incredibly specific.
Yeah.
It mandates that primary enclosures must provide enough indoor space for a dog to stand on its hind legs without touching the roof.
Wow, literally dictating the dimensions.
Yes. It also establishes statutory age limits, prohibiting the breeding of female dogs before 18 months for small breeds and 9 years for large breeds. It literally forces the Department of Agriculture to regulate the specific physical geometry and timeline of commercial breeding facilities.
Now, if we step back and connect all of this to a bigger theme, there is a massive legislative wave building in these source documents, and it is aimed squarely at artificial intelligence and the tech industry. It really seems like the era of move fast and break things is hitting a legislative brick wall.
It is the defining trend of this legislative session. Congress is trying to construct a comprehensive statutory framework to put guardrails around how minors interact with technology.
Yeah.
And the mechanisms are highly structural.
Right.
Look at the Chatbot Disclosure Bill, S 4199. It legally requires entities deploying AI chatbots to implement design features that continuously disclose to minors that they are interacting with an AI, not a human.
And how often do they have to disclose that?
The bill mandates these disclosures at the beginning of session and every 30 minutes thereafter.
And the Chatbot Act, S 4407, goes even further. It doesn't just require disclosure, it requires verifiable parental consent.
Yes, for users under 13, the platform must mandate the creation of a family account.
And if they don't...
If a platform knows a user is under 13 and lacks that family account, they are statutorily required to terminate the profile and delete all collected personal data.
They are also looking at the physical hardware level with S 5171, the Children's Artificial Intelligence Toy Safety Act. This bill defines an AI-enabled toy as one equipped to engage in two-way interaction.
Right, and it requires the FTC and the Consumer Product Safety Commission to submit a joint action plan within 2 years detailing safety guidelines and potential prohibitions on AI-enabled toy sales.
So Congress is proactively trying to establish jurisdiction over a product category that is still in its absolute infancy.
Exactly.
And they're applying similar age-gating mechanisms to the broader internet. You've got S 1748 targeting features that encourage compulsive usage by minors, defining it as persistent use that impacts major life activities.
Yeah. And then there's S 737, the Screen Act.
Right, which requires interactive computer services hosting pornographic content to implement technology verification measures. If a site hosts content meeting the legal definition of harmful to minors, They must verify the age of every single IP address located in the United States.
What ties all these tech bills together is a massive shift in philosophy. We are moving from voluntary industry self-regulation towards strict statutory mandates requiring algorithmic transparency, verifiable age gating, and direct parental control architectures built into the code itself.
So, knowing all this machinery is in motion, what is next on the calendar for the Senate?
The Daily Digest previews the exact schedule for August 5th. The Senate is scheduled to hold a cloture vote for Erica Schwartz to be the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
And if they break the filibuster?
If cloture is invoked, they will hold the final confirmation vote at 2:15 p.m. Following that, they are scheduled to execute the cloture votes on that en bloc package of 61 nominations we discussed earlier.
It's going to be a busy floor. And we want to express our immense gratitude to you for taking this deep dive with us today.
Absolutely.
Navigating the mechanics of Congress is complex, but understanding these underlying structures is absolutely vital for civic engagement. As a reminder, we are a completely independent civic education project. If you find this breakdown helpful and want to help keep this ad-free resource sustainable, please check out the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes, where you can also access a full text breakdown of the bill summaries we've been discussing.
We highly encourage you to read the primary source material yourself. You can go to congress.gov and look up the full text of any of the bills we discussed.
It's all publicly available.
Yes. For example, you might want to look at S4444, which proposes extending the surveillance authorities of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, through May 2026, while requiring the public release of certain court opinions.
Or read S4432, the Tibet Atrocities Determination Act, which structurally mandates the Secretary of State to determine within 1 year if actions in Tibet constitute crimes against humanity.
Track the committee hearings, read the legislative text, and contact your representatives to express your views on how these structural changes impact your community. There are so many ways to participate in democracy beyond just voting on Election Day.
To wrap up, there's one bill in the stack that really caught my eye. It's S4433, an amendment to the Stafford Act, which deals with federal disaster relief.
Right.
The bill dictates that if the president declines to declare a major disaster, they must notify Congress within 24 hours with a written explanation of exactly why they declined. It also sets up a fast-track joint resolution process for Congress to essentially override the president and declare the disaster themselves.
It's a fascinating procedural mechanism. It's basically designed to force transparency on executive restraint.
Right. And it leaves me with this thought for you to mull over as we sign off. If Congress is increasingly writing bills that force the executive branch to legally justify its inaction, how does that change the balance of power?
That's a great question.
Does the architecture of our government fundamentally shift when Congress begins legislating not just what the president must do, but how the president must explain what they choose not to do? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.